focus on a very important topic. It's a topic called Can Leadership Skills Be Learned? And the reason I'm so passionate about this topic, frankly, is because number one, I'm a former educator. And so I like to think often about learning and whether or not we can learn things, right? In other words, our skills, can skills be developed is often the question that I like to think about, or are skills just what they are? Meaning to say, there are some people who are gifted, they have natural ability, natural skill. And so they're natural leaders, right? They have a certain aura, a certain charisma, a certain way of doing things. They're great listeners. They have all of that skill set already in place. And Hollywood tends to, make these people something different. They tend to make them, otherworldly almost. It feels like we can't even line up or measure ourselves against these individuals because they're so much superior to us. On the other hand, if you believe that leadership skills can be learned, then it's a totally different conversation, right? Because then what's happening is you are thinking to yourself, well, can I upskill this? Can I find a way to get better? Is there an opportunity here that I'm not considering? And if the answer is yes to any of that, then you're really in a good place, because what's happening is that you have the potential to get better. And if you can get better, then let's talk about how you can get better. By the way, I do believe that leadership can be learned, that skills can be developed. I try to maintain what's called a growth mindset. And with that growth mindset, my focus is on helping me think about where I am today and where can I potentially go? What are my opportunities in front of me? And instead of just saying to myself, well, it's who I am, this is how God created me, I don't have the ability to really go beyond that. If we think that we can do it, then there's a really good chance that we can. And that's what today's presentation is all about. So whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, here on TikTok, wherever you are, I'm so glad that you're here. I want to make this a space for real, honest conversation about leadership, about mindset, about showing up with intention. And this is true, by the way, for your business, certainly, your relationships at work, but it also shows up at home, right? It shows up in your personal interactions, wherever home is for you, your relationships, your life at large. So can leadership skills be learned is our question. Let's dive into it. Okay. Now, when we talk about leadership, right? So what are some of the skills that we often think about? We think about delegation. We think about communication. We think about conflict resolution, right? Are these things that can be developed, or are these things that people either have them or they don't? So I already told you, I think the answer is the latter. I think that these are things, the former. I think these are things that can be taught. The only question is how. And so with that said, let's try to really dive into the elements here of what we're trying to accomplish as a leader, and see what kind of skills we could develop here. So first things first, I think there are four key ideas when we talk about learning leadership skills. Number one is that leadership skills are built through repetition, not through reading. So yes, leadership can be learned, but reading and just listening and watching videos is not enough, because the true magic with anything, any skill development that we're talking about, whether it's leadership related or not, we all know this. It's in the practice. It's in the doing, the day-to-day. It's in the focus, the intentional focus that we have on a regular basis. So if I want to grow, I have to ask myself, what am I going to do? How am I going to find opportunities for practice? Or where are going to be the ways by which I'm going to do the work, to do the heavy lifting, to do to have the practice opportunities, and to sharpen my skills through that practice? Because again, it's great to understand things on a conceptual level, but most of what we're talking about over here, interacting with others, executing, communicating what needs to be said, those things don't work well in theory. They only work well in practice. And the context for which you're going to utilize and demonstrate these skills are often not what we might call laboratory Context, meaning to say the environment isn't perfect, the weather isn't perfect, the timing isn't just right. It's often when the pressure is high, people are unhappy, there's a lot of stress, there are deadlines, and you're thinking to yourself, or you're short staffed or things of that nature, and you're thinking to yourself, well, how am I going to get this done? So if you're relying on a textbook, you're in trouble. But if you've got muscle memory, if you've got the ability to say, oh, I've been down this road before. I've tried this. This is what worked. This is what didn't. When I tried this before, I had this kind of pushback. Now I'm going to hopefully do it a little bit differently. These are things that only come through repetition. They come through practice. They come through getting feedback, right? And the more open and honest you are in terms of soliciting that feedback and saying, how did I do? Where could I get stronger? And you improve through the repetition and the internalization, right? If I'm getting feedback about something I did, it's so much different than getting feedback about something I'm thinking, even though that helps too, but it's not quite the same. So don't think that by reading or by listening or by watching, that's enough. You have to learn through practice. But if you give yourself opportunity for practice and in real life scenarios, it starts to become natural. It's like you work yourself through the 4 levels until you become what's called unconscious competent, which means to say you have such a degree of competence, you don't really have to think about it because it feels like it came naturally. So when you've got leaders that are doing things that come naturally to them, what you really are seeing are the people who have practiced, right? A great analogy might be sports. So you see a great athlete, and in the moment, they're always winning. They're always outperforming everybody else. And it looks like they're just more talented than everyone else. And sure, there's a lot of talent there. But the main thing that they're bringing to the table is the practice that you don't see, the repetition, the thinking through of scenarios, the application of activity around those scenarios. What do I do in such and such a situation, such a circumstance, whether it's executing a play on a basketball court or on a football field, or going through drills on the baseball diamond again and again, dealing with trajectories and different kinds of areas that you have to react to a ball being hit right at you or maybe not right at you, and you got to react quickly and figure out the best way and circumstances, etc. All of that happens because of practice. So that's number one. Number two, that on the one hand, soft skills may be the hardest skills to learn. On the other hand, they're very teachable. You know, we often think about positions as, let's call it, technical skills. So if I'm working in a, any scenario, right? So I've got certain technical skills, which are the skills I need for the job, right? If I'm working in IT, I need IT skills. If I'm working in, auto repair, I need those kinds of skills. But there are certain skills, what we call soft skills, otherwise known as transferable skills. These are the skills that are relevant anywhere. So it doesn't matter what the situation is, those skills can help you regardless. So the beauty of those is that they are teachable in the sense that you can become that person. So if you practice active listening, you could apply it wherever you are. If you practice being more empathic, thinking about things through the vantage point of others and acknowledging them, that could be applied no matter where you are. You work on presence, being there, being noticed, being just being a supportive presence in their lives. That can be applied anywhere. That, emotional regulation, you name it, these are all core leadership skills, and they could be learned and applied in any circumstance. So I may not, and I personally can speak to this, I'm not a great listener by nature. I'm not the kind of person who really wants to get empathic with people. It's just not my style. I'm much more cut to the chase. Let's focus on results, goals oriented, driven by outcomes. So for someone like me, making those connections with people was harder, but I started to learn to do it. I started to remember that I'm leading people. And the people that I'm leading, many of them really appreciate that humanity, really appreciate that sense of connection, the presence, the active listening, all of those core skills. So yes, you can learn them. That was our core question, but it does take intentionality. It does take a deliberate intention to want to grow. But if you have that, if you honestly show up every day and you say to yourself, This is who I want to be. This is who I need to be as the leader of my team. You will get better because action around intention produces positive learning and positive results. Number 3 to keep in mind is that learning leadership skills requires unlearning first, meaning to say we might have certain things that we've learned over the years that are not serving us, certain behaviors, certain habits that we've developed that are really wrong or not relevant or not appropriate in today's day and age, right? So if I want to learn new skills, I first have to unlearn those skills that are not serving me. So again, let's say in the past, I was all about intention. I was all about results. And so I measured myself by those results, but now it's no longer about me, it's about we. And as leader, I need to be thinking differently about the needs of my people. It's not me, the one at the front of the line, leading everybody else in sales, leading everybody else in other deliverables. It's about determining what do my people need to be most successful. It's more of a servant leadership mindset. So just as an example, if that's my old way of thinking, I need to unlearn that and then learn something new. Okay, so keep in mind that not everything that you know will necessarily be relevant and helpful in your new situation or circumstance. So, for example, if you have always been control-oriented, it's important for you to maintain control in every situation. You've got to unlearn that. If you don't unlearn the need for control, guess what? You're going to be controlling in every situation, and that controlling nature does not serve. That controlling nature actually has a negative effect. So keep that in mind. Realize that you are your old way of doing things has to change. Another way of thinking about it is, let's say in the past I considered myself weak if I was vulnerable, if I opened up to other people, right? I didn't want them to think of me as weak, so I didn't do it. But reality is, especially in today's work environment, being vulnerable is actually a strength. Being vulnerable is a way to let people in, and it models for others what they need to be as well, which is vulnerable, right? Which is allowing people to know that I don't know everything, allowing me to admit that I've made mistakes. So if you want to learn new skills, yes, it can be done, but do remember it's only going to happen if you're open to acknowledging that you don't know everything, that the way you've done in the past may not be the best way forward. And then by unlearning the old way, the wrong way, you could start to learn the right way, which will be the new way. Okay. Now, the last point, when we talk about can leadership skills be learned, is that learning leadership skills is not a one-off. So I have multiple degrees, multiple advanced degrees, bachelor's, 2 masters, doctorate, rabbinic ordination, you name it, I've got it, right? But I've learned that the real learning in life is the ongoing lifelong learning. It's not short-term learning. It's not the learning that happens in a classroom and then I'm done, I've graduated, I'm finished. It's not something we check off. It's something we continue to do, right? It's an everyday experience. And that does mean that you may have 2 steps forward and 1 step back, right? Monday may be a great leadership day for you, whatever that might mean. And then maybe you mess up on Tuesday and you've got to clean it up and show up again on Wednesday and do it better. So recognize that you're never done. You've never graduated from leadership. You're just continually trying to get better. So even if you've learned, for example, how to have a hard conversation, or you've learned skills around delegation, you still have to apply and you still have to refine, and you're going to continue to work it through until you get to a better place. But even the better place is never perfection, and that should be understood. And that's something you should really go into from the outset, recognizing I'm not going to ever be a perfect leader, but I'm going to become a stronger leader because I'm going to continually practice and get better. And with that practice, I'm also going to be open to feedback and ways by which I can improve. Okay, so let's open this up for conversation. Anyone who's with me now, I'd love to hear from you. Let me ask you a question. What is one leadership skill that you've had to learn, and maybe even learn the hard way, right? Something you're working on because you recognize you need to get better at it and you're working on it. So I'd love to know what that skill is and how are you upskilling? Are you reading a book? Are you are you creating opportunities for practice? Are you discussing it? Are you taking a course? What are you doing in order to be able to, or what did you do in order to be able to achieve that learning, that upskilling that we talked about? And what I want you to consider as we're discussing this is oftentimes the thing that you're trying to get better at is something that you've never practiced, right? Because remember, practice doesn't make perfect, but practice does make better. And it's true for leadership as well. So I'm going to check out, see if there are any comments here before I continue. Absolutely would love to have your comments and see what you're thinking. But in the meantime, I want to, I guess you'd say, recap what we've talked about and then draw it to a close. So if you want to become a better leader, if you want to improve your skill set, you want to be a better listener, better communicator, better delegator, you name it. So first of all, realize that my DMs are open. I'm happy to talk to you offline, have a conversation. How can I help you? Because ultimately that's why I'm here. I was a former school leader. I understood the need for growth. I've grown, was never perfect, but I definitely got better over time. And I'd love to be able to leverage what I learned to help you. Regardless, whether you want to have that conversation or not, I think we could all recognize that with practice comes improvement, and you need to be intentional. What specifically do you want to improve? Right? Practice in and of itself is not helpful unless it is guided and focused around a specific deliverable. So if you want to improve your delegation process, what element or aspect of it are you looking to improve? Because when you get intentional like that and you get specific, you can start to think about particular actions that are going to make things better. Okay? Remember that when I do these lives, when we have these conversations, the goal here isn't to say that I know everything. The idea, or for anyone else here for that matter, to be sitting back kind of all smug and saying, I know everything. None of us do. But by having these sessions and by having these conversations and allowing us to be open and honest with with how we see things, what challenges we experience, etc., that's how we grow. So these conversations right here that we're having, these are actually forms of practice in a way. It's not the same application that you'll do in your own work environment, but it's a deeper level of engagement and learning, absolutely, than whatever it is that you're doing just by reading a book or thinking about it or whatever. You've got to practice, you've got to take action, you've got to think, to reflect, to discuss, to apply. And if you do that, now you're really in business. All right. So as we wrap up, and again, I'm still looking for your comments, would love to hear what you have to say. The question was, can leadership be learned? What's the answer? 100%. It absolutely can, but it will not happen by accident. It will only happen through intentionality, through a mindset that says, I want to get better, and I want to get better at this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Intentional practice, honest feedback, courage, a willingness to hear what others have to say, a willingness to be told that you're not doing it correctly, and a willingness to get better. So if you're learning, you're stretching, and you're refining. If you do those three things, learning, stretching, refining, constantly getting feedback on those, then what you're doing is you're leading in a totally different way. You're leading with wisdom and courage and care, and I would even say with humility. Right? People want their leaders to be strong, but they want them to be humble. They want them to be open. They want them to be growth-oriented. And us as leaders, if we want our people to have these qualities, we have to model it ourselves. And so before we wrap up, first of all, again, I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for internalizing the message. Remember that skills are learned, growth is messy, leadership is practiced, it isn't perfected. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic and impactful day. And remember, DM me if you'd like to talk further and to see how I can help you upskill, improve your leadership game so that you could show up the very best way possible for your team.